The Seattle rain hammered against the glass walls of Preston Technologies, each drop a tiny explosion that mirrored the chaos erupting inside Natalie Brooks's chest. Her fingers trembled as she gripped her phone, knuckles bone-white against the black screen. 28 years old. 4 years of flawless service. One catastrophic mistake. "I'm at baggage claim now." James Callahan's voice rolled through the speaker. That deep timbre that always made her skin prickle with awareness she pretended not to feel. "I'll be in the office within the hour. Just hold down the fort until then." "Of course. I always do, darling." The word escaped like a bird from a cage she hadn't known was open. For one perfect, terrible second, time stopped. The rain paused mid-fall. Her heart forgot to beat. Then reality crashed back. I didn't... Her throat closed around the words, cheeks burning so hot she thought her skin might blister. Silence stretched across the line like a wire pulled too tight. When James finally spoke, his voice was careful, measured, stripped of its usual warmth. "Natalie, I am so sorry, Mr. Callahan. That was completely inappropriate and unprofessional. I don't know what I was thinking. Actually, I wasn't thinking at all." The words tumbled out in a desperate rush. "I've just been so stressed this morning, and the word just slipped out, and I swear it will never happen again. If you want to start looking for a replacement, I completely understand." Natalie. Firmer this time. A command. "Stop." She stopped. Her hand pressed against her mouth as if she could physically trap any more disasters inside. "We'll talk about this when I get to the office," James said quietly. "In private." The line went dead. Natalie stared at the blank screen, her reflection ghostly in its surface. Around her, the office hummed with normal Wednesday energy. Keyboards clattered. Phones rang. People laughed at the coffee station, oblivious to the fact that her entire world had just imploded. Riley Kim materialized at her desk seconds later, drawn by whatever expression had frozen on Natalie's face. "What happened? You look like someone died." "Worse." Natalie's voice came out hollow. "I just called James darling." Riley's eyes went wide. "You what?" "On the phone. I told him I'd handle things until he got here. And I called him darling, like it was the most natural thing in the world." She dropped her head into her hands. "I'm going to be fired. 4 years of perfect service and I'm going to lose everything because I can't control my stupid mouth." "Okay. Breathe." Riley pulled up a chair, her marketing director composure slipping into best friend mode. "What did he say?" "That we'd talk about it in private when he gets here." Natalie looked up, and the fear in her eyes was raw and real. "Which means he's going to fire me privately instead of humiliating me in front of everyone. That's the only reason you call someone into your office and close the door." "Or," Riley suggested carefully, "maybe he wants to talk about why you said it." The words hit like a physical blow. Natalie had spent months, maybe longer, building walls around the truth she didn't want to face. But Riley's question tore through those defenses like paper. She knew the exact number of days James had worked at Preston Technologies. She noticed when he skipped lunch during high-stress negotiations. She tracked the way his tie loosened when he was deep in thought, the small scar above his left eyebrow from a childhood accident he'd mentioned once in passing. These weren't things a normal assistant noticed. These were things someone in love cataloged without meaning to. "Oh no," Natalie breathed. "Riley, I think I'm in love with him." "Yeah." Her friend's voice was gentle, understanding. "Everyone knows except apparently you and possibly him." The word settled over Natalie like a shroud. She had built her entire career on being invisible, indispensable, perfectly professional. She'd sacrificed relationships, moved across the country, dedicated every waking hour to being exactly what James Callahan needed, and now she was about to lose it all. The elevator chimed. Natalie's head snapped up. James stepped into the office, his dark suit rumpled from travel, brown hair slightly mussed. He carried his briefcase in one hand, phone in the other. His eyes swept the floor, acknowledging employees with professional nods, until they found hers. The intensity in his gaze stole her breath. It wasn't anger. It was something else entirely. Something searching and hungry and dangerous. He walked past her desk without stopping. "Natalie." His voice cut through the office noise. "My office, please." The door closed behind him with a soft, final click. Riley squeezed her shoulder. Whatever happens, I'm here. Natalie stood on legs that felt like water, smoothed her skirt with shaking hands, crossed the expanse of carpet that felt like walking to an execution. She stepped inside James's office and closed the door. James stood at the windows, hands in his pockets, staring out at the rain-soaked city. For a long moment, he didn't turn around. Mr. Callahan, I want to apologize, Natalie began, the speech she'd rehearsed tumbling out. What I said on the phone was inexcusable. I've always maintained the highest level of professionalism, and I failed today. If you feel my position here is no longer tenable, I understand. I can have my resignation on your desk by end of day. Is that what you think I want? James turned slowly, and his gray eyes pinned her in place. Your resignation? I assumed that calling your boss an endearment would be grounds for dismissal in any professional environment. Natalie. He moved away from the window, leaning against the edge of his desk. Closer now. Close enough that she could see the tension in his jaw, the tightness around his eyes. How long have you worked for me? The question caught her off guard. 4 years, 2 months, and 16 days. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, or something warmer. You know the exact count. I'm detail-oriented. It's why you hired me. It's one of many reasons I hired you. James's voice dropped lower, more intimate. In those 4 years, you've been the most capable, intelligent, and dedicated person I've ever worked with. You anticipate problems before they arise. You solve crises I don't even know are happening. Thank you. But that doesn't excuse what I said. What if I don't want you to excuse it? The question hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. What if I want to know why you said it? Natalie's heart hammered so hard she thought he might hear it. It was a slip of the tongue. I was stressed and exhausted, and the word just came out. It didn't mean anything, didn't it? The challenge in his voice made her look up, really look at him. What she saw in his eyes stole every word from her throat. It wasn't anger or disappointment. It was hope, mixed with something that looked dangerously like longing. Natalie, I'm going to say something that could be completely inappropriate. James took a breath, and for the first time since she'd known him, he looked uncertain, vulnerable. And if I'm wrong, we'll pretend this conversation never happened. But I have to know. He took one step closer, then another, until only the width of a breath separated them. Did you mean it when you called me darling? Not as a mistake or a slip, but because some part of you wanted to say it? The rain drummed against the windows. The city moved below them, oblivious. And Natalie stood on the edge of a cliff, knowing that her next words would either save her or destroy her. Yes, she whispered. I meant it. James's eyes darkened. His hand lifted, hovering near her face but not quite touching. How long? How long what? How long have you had feelings for me? The truth escaped before she could stop it. About a year, maybe longer. It crept up on me gradually. One day I realized I was thinking about you outside of work, wondering if you ate properly during long negotiations, noticing things that had nothing to do with business. Like what? Like the way your eyes crinkle when you smile at a successful deal. The small scar above your left eyebrow. How you take your coffee black with 1 sugar. How you loosen your tie when you're stressed. James's breath hitched. Natalie. Riley says everyone in the office knows except apparently us. Your friend Riley is perceptive. His hand finally made contact, fingertips brushing her cheek with devastating gentleness. Because she's right. It's not just you. The world tilted. What are you saying? I'm saying that for the past 18 months I've been lying to myself about my feelings for you. Telling myself that what I felt was purely professional respect. That the reason I looked forward to Monday mornings was because you're an excellent assistant, not because I'd get to see you again. Natalie couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stare at him as her entire reality reorganized itself. You have feelings for me? I'm in love with you, James said simply. I have been for longer than I want to admit. But you were my employee and I was your boss, and there was no ethical way to act on those feelings, so I buried them. Did they fade? No. His thumb traced her jawline, and the touch sent electricity racing through her veins. They got stronger, every single day. The confession hung between them, raw and real and terrifying. Natalie's hands came up, resting against his chest. She could feel his heartbeat racing beneath the expensive fabric of his shirt, as fast and wild as her own. "So what do we do now?" she whispered. James's other hand came up to frame her face, and the look in his eyes made her knees weak. "Now," he said, his voice rough with restrained desire, "I'm going to kiss you, and then we're going to figure out how to make this work without destroying everything we've built." He lowered his head slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. But Natalie rose on her toes to meet him, her fingers curling into his shirt. Their lips met, and the world caught fire. The kiss was everything 4 years of denial had built it to be. Desperate and tender, claiming and questioning, a collision of want and fear and relief so intense it left them both shaking. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, James rested his forehead against hers. "There's something I need to tell you," he said quietly, "something that changes everything." Before he could continue, his phone buzzed, once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. James pulled it out, and Natalie watched his expression shift from warmth to confusion to something that looked like dread. "What is it?" He turned the screen toward her. The messages were from their chief operating officer, Marcus Webb, at board meeting. Emergency. Conference room. Now. Anderson account pulled their contract. "They're going with Meridian instead. Get Natalie. You both need to be here." Natalie's blood turned to ice. "That's impossible. I handled the crisis. Denver confirmed the shipment. I scheduled the call for 3 o'clock to update them. Someone got to them first." James's voice was grim. He looked at her, and something in his eyes made her stomach drop. "Someone told them about the delay before we could. Someone inside Preston Technologies." The implication hit her like a physical blow. "You think someone sabotaged us?" "I think someone's been sabotaging us for months." James grabbed his suit jacket. "And I think I know who." He started toward the door, then paused, turning back to her. "Natalie, what I was about to tell you before. About something that changes everything." His jaw tightened. "I'm not just the CEO of Preston Technologies. My family owns 60% of the company, and 6 months ago, my father decided it was time for me to get married. He's already chosen the woman." The words landed like a grenade. "Her name is Victoria Ashford, daughter of our biggest investor. The wedding is set for 3 months from now." James's eyes held hers, desperate and pleading, and until 20 minutes ago I thought I could go through with it. The conference room felt like a tomb. 10 pairs of eyes turned toward them as James and Natalie entered, but Natalie only saw one person. Victoria Ashford sat at the far end of the table, her blonde hair styled in perfect waves, her designer suit screaming old money and privilege. She wore a ring on her left hand that caught the fluorescent light and threw it back like a weapon. An engagement ring. "James, darling." Victoria's voice was smooth as silk, sharp as broken glass. "We were just discussing your assistant's spectacular failure with the Anderson account." The word darling from Victoria's lips felt like mockery. Like she'd been listening at doors, collecting ammunition. Marcus Webb, the COO, cleared his throat. He was a broad-shouldered man in his 50s with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. "Sit, both of you." James remained standing. "What happened with Anderson?" "What happened?" Victoria said, rising from her chair with predatory grace. "Is that someone from this company called them this morning and informed them that their shipment had been delayed due to gross mismanagement. That Preston Technologies could no longer be trusted with their account." "That's a lie." Natalie's voice cut through the room. "I handled the situation. Denver confirmed they could meet the Friday deadline. I scheduled a call for 3 o'clock to update Anderson myself. Proactively. And yet," Victoria pulled out her phone, tapping the screen with manicured nails. "Anderson received a call at 9:45 this morning. From a Preston Technologies number. From an internal extension." She turned the phone toward them. The call log was clear. Damning. The extension number made Natalie's stomach drop to her feet. It was hers. "That's impossible." Her voice shook. "I never made that call. I was coordinating with Denver, working on damage control." "Were you?" Victoria's smile was poison sweet. "Or were you too busy making inappropriate advances toward your boss?" The temperature in the room plummeted. Every board member's attention sharpened. laser-focused on Natalie. "Excuse me?" James's voice dropped to a dangerous register. "Oh, come now." Victoria moved closer, circling them like a shark. "Did you think no one would notice? The way she looks at you? The way she finds excuses to stay late, to travel with you, to insert herself into every aspect of your life? That's her job," James said coldly. "Is it also her job to call you darling?" The silence that followed was absolute, suffocating. Riley had been right. Everyone knew. But Natalie had been naive enough to think people's knowledge wouldn't be weaponized against her. "I received a very interesting call this morning," Victoria continued, addressing the room now, "from someone concerned about the relationship between our CEO and his assistant. Someone who felt it was affecting decision-making, compromising the integrity of this company." "Who?" James demanded. "An anonymous source, but they were kind enough to provide proof." Victoria nodded to Marcus, who pulled up a file on the conference room screen. Photos filled the display. James and Natalie at a restaurant 6 months ago, heads bent together over a contract. James's hand on her lower back guiding her through a doorway. The two of them in his office late at night, standing closer than any professional relationship required. Each image was innocent in isolation. Together, they painted a picture of something far more damning. "These were taken over the past 8 months," Marcus said quietly. His disappointment was a palpable thing. "James, is this true? Are you involved with your assistant?" James's jaw tightened. Natalie could see the war happening behind his eyes. The truth would destroy her career. A lie would destroy them both in a different way. "Answer the question," Victoria pressed. "Or should I?" "Victoria, that's enough." James's voice was steel. "Is it?" She turned to face him fully, and something ugly flickered across her beautiful face. "Because from where I'm standing, you've been lying to me for months, making promises you had no intention of keeping, all while carrying on with your secretary. Assistant," Natalie corrected automatically, and immediately regretted it when Victoria's eyes snapped to her. "Ah, yes. The assistant who somehow managed to tank our biggest account, who made an unauthorized call to sabotage our relationship with Anderson, who's been manipulating you for years, using her position to get close to you, to isolate you, to make herself indispensable." "That's not what happened," Natalie said, but her voice sounded weak even to her own ears. "Then what did happen?" Marcus leaned forward. "Explain the call log, Natalie. Explain how a call was made from your extension at 9:45 this morning to Anderson's CFO, informing them that we couldn't be trusted to fulfill their order." "I don't know. I didn't make that call. Someone must have used my phone or spoofed the number or you're lying," Victoria interrupted smoothly. "Trying to cover up your incompetence by throwing around conspiracy theories." "Check the security footage," James said sharply. "Natalie's desk is visible from 3 different cameras. Pull the footage from 9:45 this morning." Marcus nodded to an IT specialist who'd been silent in the corner. The young man pulled out a laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard. The wait stretched out, each second an eternity. Natalie's hands were fists in her lap, nails digging crescents into her palms. Finally, the specialist looked up. His face was pale. "The footage from that time frame has been deleted. All 3 cameras. Clean wipe." "Convenient," Victoria murmured. "Suspicious," James countered. "Why would Natalie delete security footage if she had nothing to hide? She's smart enough to know that would make her look guilty." "Unless she panicked," Marcus suggested quietly. "Made the call in anger or stress, then tried to cover it up." "I didn't." Natalie stood, her chair scraping back. "I would never sabotage this company. I've given 4 years of my life to Preston Technologies. I've sacrificed everything. For what?" Victoria's voice was soft, deadly. "For him? For some fantasy that he'd choose you over his family, over his responsibilities, over me?" The truth in the accusation made Natalie flinch. "James has a duty," Victoria continued, moving to stand beside him, her hand sliding possessively onto his arm. "To his family, to this company, to the merger our marriage will secure. Did he tell you that, Miss Brooks? That without the Ashford investment, Preston Technologies will lose 40% of its value? That hundreds of jobs depend on our union?" She hadn't known. From the way James's shoulders tensed, he hadn't told her deliberately. "Did he mention that his father is dying? That his last wish is to see James married, settled, prepared to take over the family empire? Victoria's smile was triumphant. Or were you too busy playing house to care about reality? Victoria. James's voice was a warning. No, she deserves the truth. Victoria turned to Natalie, and the viciousness in her eyes was undisguised now. You were never going to be anything more than a distraction, a way for him to rebel before accepting his responsibilities. Did you really think you were special? That love would be enough? The words hit like bullets, each one finding its mark, because Victoria was right. Natalie had been living in a fantasy, believing that somehow, impossibly, this could work. Natalie didn't make that call, James said firmly, and I'm going to prove it. How? Marcus asked. The footage is gone. The call log is clear. Anderson has already moved their business to Meridian. He rubbed his temples. This is a disaster. A $12 million disaster that falls squarely on your shoulders, Miss Brooks. Then I'll resign, Natalie said quietly, effective immediately. I'll take full responsibility for the Anderson account. Just don't let this affect the company. Noble, Victoria said, but insufficient. This goes beyond one lost account. This is about the integrity of Preston Technologies, about whether we can trust our leadership. She turned to the board members. I move for a vote of no confidence in James Callahan's leadership, pending a full investigation into his relationship with his assistant and whether it compromised his judgment. The room erupted. Board members argued, voices overlapping. Marcus called for order. And through it all, Victoria stood serene and certain, a queen watching her enemies destroy themselves. James grabbed Natalie's arm, pulling her toward the door. We're leaving. You walk out of this meeting, Marcus warned, and you're admitting guilt. I'm protecting what's mine, James shot back. I'll deal with the consequences later. They made it 3 steps into the hallway before Victoria's voice stopped them cold. James, if you walk away now, I'll make one call. One call to my father, and he'll pull every dollar of Ashford investment out of Preston Technologies. The company will collapse by Monday. Every employee, from the executive level to the cleaning staff, will lose their jobs. James stopped. His hand was still wrapped around Natalie's arm, but she felt the moment he made his choice. Felt it in the way his grip loosened. His shoulders sagged. His breath left his lungs in a defeated exhale. Don't do this, he said quietly. Please, come back inside, Victoria replied. End whatever this is, and we'll salvage what we can. Natalie pulled her arm free, looked up at James and saw everything she needed to know in his eyes. He would sacrifice himself to save the company, to save the hundreds of people who depended on Preston Technologies for their livelihoods. He would sacrifice them. Go, she whispered. I'll handle this. Natalie, no. One of us has to survive this. She smiled, and it felt like glass cutting her face. Let it be you. She walked away before he could stop her. Back through the conference room, past Victoria's triumphant smile, straight to Marcus's desk. I confess, she said clearly. I made the call to Anderson. I sabotaged the account. I acted alone without Mr. Callahan's knowledge. I'll provide a full written statement and resign immediately. The lie burned her throat like acid, but she forced the words out, forced herself to meet Marcus's eyes without flinching. Why? Marcus asked quietly. Because I was angry. Because I wanted him to notice me. Because I thought if the company was in crisis, he'd need me more. The story built itself, each word another nail in her professional coffin. I made a mistake. I'll live with the consequences. Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded, something that might have been respect flickering in his eyes. He knew she was lying, but he also knew she was giving them a way out, a neat solution that protected James, protected the company, and gave the board someone to blame. Security will escort you out, he said. You have 1 hour to collect your personal effects. All company property, including your laptop, phone, and access cards, will be surrendered immediately. Natalie nodded. She didn't look at James, couldn't bear to see whatever expression was on his face. She walked to the elevator with her head high, her back straight, her hands steady. It was only when the elevator doors closed, when she was finally alone, that she let herself break. She slid down the wall, her professional mask crumbling, and pressed her hands over her mouth to muffle the sound of her grief. She had saved him, saved the company, saved hundreds of jobs, and destroyed herself completely. The elevator reached the ground floor, and the doors opened to reveal Riley waiting on the other side. "I heard," her friend said simply. "Let's get you out of here." They walked through the lobby together, past the security desk, through the glass doors into the Seattle rain. The sky had opened up completely now, sheets of water turning the street into a river. Natalie stood there, letting the rain soak through her clothes, wash away the careful professional image she'd built over 4 years. "You didn't make that call," Riley said. "It wasn't a question." "No. Then who did?" Natalie closed her eyes. Thought about the deleted security footage, the perfectly timed anonymous tip, the way Victoria had orchestrated everything with surgical precision. "Someone who's very good at getting what she wants," she said quietly. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You made the right choice. He was never yours to keep. Leave Seattle. Forget him, or I'll make sure you never work anywhere again." Natalie stared at the message, rain running down her screen and blurring the words. Then she started laughing, a broken sound that scared even her. "What is it?" Riley asked, alarmed. "I just realized something." Natalie looked up at the towering glass building behind them. Somewhere up there, James was probably still in that conference room, choosing duty over love, just like she'd chosen his future over her own. "Victoria didn't just take my job. She took my entire life. So what are you going to do?" The question hung in the rain-soaked air. Natalie thought about running, about disappearing, about starting over somewhere Victoria Ashford's reach couldn't touch. Then she thought about James's hands framing her face. His voice saying, "I'm in love with you." The way the world had tilted when their lips met. Some things were worth fighting for, even if the fight destroyed you. "I'm going to prove I didn't make that call," Natalie said quietly. "I'm going to expose Victoria's lies, and I'm going to save the man I love from making the worst mistake of his life." Riley grinned, fierce and proud. "There's my girl. So where do we start? With the one person who might actually tell us the truth." Natalie pulled out her phone, scrolling through her contacts. Victoria's ex-husband. She'd seen his name once, months ago, in a background check James had commissioned before agreeing to the engagement. Victoria's first marriage had lasted 6 months before ending in a sealed divorce settlement. At the time, Natalie had thought it was simply a youthful mistake. Now she wondered what Victoria's ex had been paid to keep quiet about. The phone rang twice before a male voice answered. Cautious and wary, "Who is this?" "Mr. Chen, my name is Natalie Brooks. I worked for Preston Technologies. I need to talk to you about your ex-wife, about Victoria Ashford." There was a long silence. Then, "Where are you?" "Seattle. I'm in Portland. There's a coffee shop on 5th and Morrison. Be there at 8 tonight. He paused. "Come alone. If Victoria finds out I talked to you, the NDA I signed won't matter. She'll destroy me anyway. Why would you risk it?" His laugh was bitter, broken. "Because someone should have warned me about her before I married her. Before she destroyed my entire life for fun. Consider this me paying it forward." The line went dead. Natalie looked at Riley, then at the building behind them where James was choosing his cage. "I need to drive to Portland," she said. "Tonight, I'm coming with you. Riley, someone has to watch your back. And besides," Riley's smile was sharp, "I've always wanted to take down a villain." They turned away from Preston Technologies, from the life Natalie had built and lost in the space of a morning. The rain was starting to ease, thin sunlight breaking through the clouds in narrow beams. Natalie took one last look at the building's top floor. At the window she knew was James's office. Then she walked away, toward whatever truth waited in Portland. Toward the fight that would either save them both or finish destroying her. Behind her, unseen, James stood at that window. His hand was pressed against the glass, his eyes tracking her retreating form. His phone rang. "Victoria, it's done," she said. She confessed. "She's gone, and you're mine." James closed his eyes. "Yes. Say it. Say you'll marry me. Say you'll forget about her." The words tasted like ash in his mouth. "I'll marry you." "Good." Satisfaction dripped from her voice. The wedding is in 3 months. I expect you to play the devoted fiancé. Any hint of your little assistant, any contact with her at all, and I'll make sure the Ashford investment disappears. Are we clear? Crystal. Excellent. I'll see you at dinner tonight. Don't be late. She hung up without saying goodbye. James stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty street where Natalie had been. Then he pulled up his contacts, scrolling to a name he hadn't called in 5 years. The phone rang once. Twice. On the third ring, a gravelly voice answered. Callahan, I thought you said you'd never call in that favor. I need you to do something for me, James said quietly. Something that can't be traced back to me. Something illegal. A pause. Then, I'm listening. I need you to dig into Victoria Ashford's background. Find me everything she's ever done, everyone she's ever hurt, every skeleton in her carefully curated closet. His voice went cold, calculated, and I need it done before I walk down the aisle in 3 months. What are you planning? James's reflection stared back at him from the rain-streaked window. He looked like a stranger, harder, colder, capable of things he'd never thought himself capable of. I'm planning to destroy the woman I'm engaged to, he said simply, before she destroys everyone I care about. That's a dangerous game. Then it's a good thing I've always liked danger. James ended the call and turned away from the window. Somewhere in Seattle, Natalie was fighting for the truth. In 3 hours, she'd be in Portland, learning secrets that would change everything. And in 3 months, either they'd both be free, or they'd both be destroyed. James walked back to the conference room to play the role Victoria expected. The dutiful fiancé, the compromised CEO, the man who'd given up love for duty. But behind his carefully neutral expression, behind the lies he told with every breath, his mind was already 3 steps ahead, planning, calculating, preparing for war. Victoria Ashford had made one crucial mistake. She'd threatened the woman he loved, and James Callahan protected what was his, no matter the cost. The coffee shop on 5th and Morrison smelled like burnt espresso and old secrets. Natalie sat in a corner booth, her hands wrapped around a mug that had gone cold an hour ago. Riley was positioned near the door, pretending to work on her laptop while actually watching every person who entered. At 8:15, a man walked in. Mid-30s, with the kind of worn-down look that came from years of looking over your shoulder. His eyes swept the space, found Natalie, and something that might have been relief crossed his face. Daniel Chen slid into the booth across from her. Up close, he looked even more exhausted. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his hands trembled slightly as he ordered black coffee from a passing waitress. You look like her, he said quietly. That's what he loves, you know. Women who remind him of the one thing he can't control. I don't understand. Victoria doesn't want James Callahan. She wants to own him. There's a difference. Daniel pulled out a worn folder, setting it between them like a bomb. I was married to her for 6 months. 6 months of hell that I'm still paying for. The NDA I signed cost me $2 million and everything I built. What did she do? What didn't she do? His laugh was hollow. We met at a charity gala. She was beautiful, charming, everything a man could want. We were married 3 months later. I thought I was the luckiest bastard alive. He took a long drink of his coffee, and when he set the cup down, his hands were steadier, as if the story itself was giving him strength. The first month was perfect. Then her father cut off her trust fund. Some disagreement about business decisions. Victoria was furious, humiliated. She needed money to maintain her lifestyle, and my tech startup had just secured a major investment round. Natalie's stomach sank. She married you for your money. Worse, she married me to destroy me. Daniel opened the folder, pulling out documents. This is the prenup I signed. Standard stuff, or so I thought. But buried in the fine print was a clause. If I filed for divorce within the first year, I forfeited everything. My company, my assets, my patents. Everything would go to her. That's unconscionable. It's also legally binding. My lawyer tried to warn me, but I was in love. I thought love meant trust. He laughed again, and the sound was broken glass. 3 months in, she started sabotaging my company. Small things at first. She'd show up drunk to investor meetings, make scenes at important dinners. Then it escalated. He pulled out more papers, and these were stamped with law firm letterheads. She seduced my business partner, got him to sign over his shares to her. Then she sent the evidence to his wife, who filed for divorce. He lost everything, just like she planned, all while she was sleeping in my bed every night, telling me she loved me. Natalie felt sick. How did you get out? I didn't, not really. Daniel's eyes were haunted. I lasted 6 months before I couldn't take it anymore. I filed for divorce, knowing it would cost me everything. Victoria took my company, sold it to a competitor for pennies on the dollar just to spite me. She took the patents I'd spent 10 years developing, and then she made me sign an NDA promising never to speak about what she'd done. But you're telling me now. Because I recognize the pattern. The photos, the anonymous tips, the way she's positioning you as the villain while playing the victim. He pushed the folder toward Natalie. This is everything I could gather without violating the NDA. Financial records that show Victoria's been moving money through shell companies. Background on her previous relationships, all of which ended with the men mysteriously losing their careers or reputations. And this, he pulled out one final document, a police report from 8 years ago, heavily redacted. Victoria's college roommate filed a restraining order against her. The official reason was stalking and harassment. But the roommate's boyfriend at the time was the son of a tech mogul. 3 months after the restraining order, the boyfriend broke up with his girlfriend and started dating Victoria. What happened to the roommate? She transferred schools, changed her name, and disappeared. I spent 3 years trying to find her. Never could. Daniel's voice dropped lower. Whatever Victoria did to her was bad enough that she ran and never looked back. Natalie stared at the documents spread across the table. Each one was a piece of a pattern, a history of calculated cruelty, hidden behind a beautiful face and old money connections. Why is she so obsessed with destroying people? Control, Daniel said simply. Victoria's father is dying. When he does, she inherits nothing. Her trust fund was contingent on her proving she could be responsible, could marry well, could secure the family legacy. Every man she's destroyed was practice. Every relationship was a test run. And James is the grand prize. Preston Technologies. The Callahan family fortune. The social status and power that comes with it. Daniel leaned forward. But here's what she doesn't know. What nobody knows except me, and now you. He pulled out a USB drive, sliding it across the table. I had a friend who works in IT security. Before Victoria took everything, I had him create a backup of her emails, her text messages, everything from our marriage. It's all here. Every manipulative conversation, every planned betrayal, evidence of at least 3 instances of fraud and 1 case of blackmail. Natalie picked up the drive like it might explode. This could destroy her. It could send her to prison. But it also violates my NDA. If she finds out I gave this to you, she'll sue me for everything I have left, which isn't much, but it's enough to keep me alive. Then why give it to me? Daniel smiled, and for the first time it reached his eyes. Because someone has to stop her. And because I see the way you're willing to sacrifice yourself for James Callahan, that kind of love doesn't deserve to be another casualty of Victoria's games. He stood, dropping cash on the table for his coffee. One more thing. The security footage that was deleted from Preston Technologies? Victoria has a contact in your IT department, guy named Marcus Trent. She's been paying him for 6 months to give her access to internal systems. How do you know? Because she used the same guy to hack my company's servers. He's good at covering his tracks, but he always leaves a signature, a single line of code in every system he compromises. Find that code, and you prove Victoria was behind everything. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. Daniel paused at the booth's edge, his expression turning solemn. Because my sister's getting married next month, and the guy she's marrying reminds me of how I used to be. Hopeful, trusting, in love. He met Natalie's eyes. I can't save her from making her own mistakes, but maybe I can save someone else from making mine. He walked out into the Portland night, leaving Natalie with a folder full of evidence and a USB drive that could change everything. Riley appeared at her side seconds later. Did you get it? More than I expected. Natalie's hands were shaking as she gathered the documents. Riley, if we use this, we're declaring war on Victoria Ashford. She has unlimited resources, powerful connections, and absolutely no morals. and you have the truth. Plus a really pissed-off marketing director who's always wanted to be a spy. Riley grinned. When do we start? Now. Natalie pulled out her phone, scrolling to a number she'd deleted but still had memorized. James's personal cell. She hesitated, her thumb hovering over the call button. He'd told Victoria he would marry her. He'd watched Natalie confess to a crime she didn't commit and let her walk away. But he'd also said he loved her. And sometimes love meant trusting someone even when they seemed to have given up. The phone rang twice before James answered. His voice was rough, exhausted. Natalie, I told you we can't. I have evidence, she interrupted. Evidence that Victoria set me up. Evidence of fraud, blackmail, and conspiracy. And I need you to trust me one more time. Silence stretched across the line. Natalie could hear background noise, clinking glasses, and murmured conversation. He was at dinner, probably with Victoria, playing the role of devoted fiancé. Where are you? James asked quietly. Portland, but I can be back in Seattle by midnight. The Anderson account. Who really made that call? Victoria's IT contact, Marcus Trent. He used my credentials to call from my extension, then deleted the security footage to cover his tracks. Can you prove it? Yes, and I can prove a lot more. Natalie took a breath. But James, if we do this, if we go after Victoria with everything we have, there's no going back. She'll come after us with everything she has. Your family's company, her father's investment, all of it will be on the line. I don't care. The words were simple. Absolute. I watched you confess to something you didn't do to protect me, James continued, his voice low and intense. I watched you walk away, knowing Victoria would destroy you, and I let it happen because I thought I was protecting the company, protecting hundreds of jobs. But you know what I realized? What? A company that can only survive through blackmail and manipulation isn't worth saving, and a man who chooses duty over the woman he loves isn't worth being. Something in his voice shifted, went harder. I'm done playing Victoria's games. I'm done letting her control my life, and I'm done living without you. Natalie's eyes burned with tears. Where are you right now? Dinner at Le Chateau. Victoria's celebrating our engagement with her friends. And you're on the phone with me. She's in the bathroom. I have maybe 3 minutes before she comes back and realizes I'm not being the perfect fiancé. James, listen carefully. I need you to keep playing the role. I need Victoria to think she's won, that you're completely under her control. Can you do that? How long? 3 days, maybe 4. I need time to verify the evidence to build a case that's airtight. And I need you to find Marcus Trent and keep him at Preston Technologies. Don't fire him. Don't confront him. Just make sure he can't run before we're ready. I can do that. James paused. Natalie, I'm sorry. For everything. For letting you take the fall. For not fighting harder in that conference room. For choosing the easy path instead of you. You chose to protect people who depend on you. I did the same thing. That's not something to apologize for. Natalie smiled through her tears. But James, when this is over, when we've taken down Victoria and saved your company and cleared my name, yes, you're going to spend the rest of your life making it up to me. His laugh was soft, genuine, the first real sound of happiness she'd heard from him all day. Deal. Now go. Build your case. I'll keep Victoria distracted. Be careful. She's dangerous. So am I, James said quietly. She just doesn't know it yet. The line went dead. Natalie sat in the coffee shop booth, surrounded by evidence of Victoria's crimes, with Riley watching her back, and James finally fighting on her side. For the first time since that morning's phone call, since the word darling had slipped out and changed everything, Natalie felt something that might have been hope. They drove back to Seattle in Riley's car, the Portland lights fading behind them. Natalie spent the drive examining the documents, her mind already building the case that would either save them or destroy them completely. So what's the plan? Riley asked, eyes on the dark highway ahead. We prove Victoria sabotaged the Anderson account. We prove she's been manipulating James for months, and we do it in a way that protects Preston Technologies and exposes her without giving her time to retaliate. How? By using her greatest weapon against her. Natalie held up her phone. Social proof. Public opinion. The court of public perception that she spent her entire life carefully curating. I'm not following. Victoria's power comes from her reputation. The perfect heiress, the wronged fiancé, the woman who's about to merge two powerful families. Natalie's smile was cold, calculating. What happens when the world finds out she's actually a fraud? A blackmailer? A woman who destroys lives for sport? She loses everything. Exactly. But we can't just dump the evidence online. We need to be strategic. We need to time it perfectly. And we need to make sure that when we pull the trigger, there's no way for her to spin the narrative. Riley glanced over at her friend, something like pride shining in her eyes. You've changed. This morning you were ready to resign quietly. Now you're planning a tactical takedown. This morning I still thought playing by the rules would protect me. Natalie looked out at the dark road, at the reflection of her own eyes in the window. Victoria taught me an important lesson. Sometimes the rules are rigged. Sometimes you have to break them to win. That's a dangerous philosophy. Good thing I'm feeling dangerous. They arrived back in Seattle at 11:30. The city was alive with nighttime energy, bars spilling light and laughter onto rain-slicked streets. Riley drove them to her apartment, a small but elegant space in Capitol Hill. You're staying here until this is over, Riley declared, unlocking the door. Victoria knows where you live. She probably has people watching your place. I can't ask you to... You're not asking. I'm telling. Riley tossed her keys on the counter. Besides, someone needs to make sure you eat and sleep instead of obsessing over evidence all night. Natalie managed to smile. Thank you. For everything. Thank me when this is over and you're back at Preston Technologies with James Callahan's ring on your finger and Victoria Ashford in prison. I don't care about the ring. I just want the truth to come out. Liar, Riley grinned. But we'll work on your honesty later. Right now you need food and coffee. I'll order takeout. You start going through that USB drive. Natalie sat up at Riley's dining table, her laptop glowing in the dim apartment. She plugged in the USB drive and files began to populate the screen. Hundreds of them. Emails, text messages, bank records, photos. A digital record of Victoria Ashford's crimes. She started with the emails, reading through months of manipulative correspondence. Victoria arranging meetings with business rivals. Victoria planting false information with industry journalists. Victoria systematically destroying anyone who threatened her goals. One email chain in particular caught Natalie's attention. It was dated 6 months ago, right around the time James's engagement had been announced, from V. Ashford, washfordnv.com to M. Trent, contract Preston Tech. Com subject. Special Project I need access to Preston Technologies' internal systems, specifically security footage, phone logs, and executive calendars. Name your price. The response came 2 hours later, from M. Trent, contract PrestonTech.com to V. Ashford, ashfordnv.com, subject. Special project $50K upfront, $10K monthly retainer, untraceable payments only. What are you looking for? Victoria's reply was chilling in its simplicity. Everything. I need to know every move James Callahan makes, everyone he talks to, everywhere he goes. And when the time comes, I'll need you to make some data disappear. There were dozens of emails after that. Victoria tracking James's schedule, noting when he stayed late with Natalie, documenting every interaction between them. Building a case, gathering ammunition, planning today's perfect ambush. She's been planning this for months, Natalie breathed. Every move choreographed. Every piece of evidence planted. Riley looked over her shoulder. Can we prove it? These emails prove she hired Marcus Trent. The bank records show the payments. And look at this. Natalie pulled up a video file. The timestamp showed 9:45 that morning, the same time the call to Anderson had been made. The video was grainy, security footage from a server room. It showed Marcus Trent sitting at a terminal, typing rapidly. On the screen visible behind him, Natalie could make out her extension number and Anderson's contact information. He documented his own crime, Riley said, incredulous. No. Victoria documented it. Insurance, in case he ever tried to turn on her. Natalie's hands were shaking as she copied the file to her own drive. This is it. This is everything we need. Her phone buzzed. A text from James Victoria just left. Said she had to handle something urgent. Be careful. Another text came through seconds later, from an unknown number. but Natalie recognized the tone immediately. Victoria, did you really think I wouldn't know you went to Portland? That I wouldn't have people watching Daniel? You're so predictable, Natalie. So naive. Whatever he gave you won't be enough. I always win. Always the third text. This one was a photo. Daniel Chen, unconscious, slumped against a wall. His face was bruised, his shirt torn. He violated his NDA. There are consequences for betrayal, just like there will be consequences for you. Natalie's blood turned to ice. She hurt him. Riley, she actually hurt him. Call 911. And tell them what? That a rich heiress beat up her ex-husband for talking to me? She'll have lawyers and alibis and everything buried before the police even arrive. So, what do we do? Natalie looked at the evidence on her screen, then at the threatening text from Victoria. A plan crystallized in her mind. Dangerous. Possibly illegal. Definitely the only option left. We don't wait 3 days. We don't build a perfect case. We go after her now, tonight, before she can hurt anyone else. How? Victoria's greatest fear is public humiliation. She spent her entire life building a perfect image, so we shatter it. We leak everything, to every major news outlet, every social media platform, every person who's ever trusted her. That's scorched earth, Natalie. There's no coming back from that. Good. Natalie's eyes were hard, determined. I don't want to come back. I want to burn her world down. She pulled out her phone and called James. He answered on the first ring. Victoria knows. She hurt Daniel Chen. She's threatening me. We're out of time. Then we move now. No hesitation in his voice. What do you need? Access to Preston Technologies' server. I need to upload files to the company network, where they can't be easily deleted or suppressed. Done. I'm sending you admin credentials right now. What else? A press conference. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., you, me, and every major outlet in Seattle. Natalie, if we do this, I know. Your family's company, the Ashford investment, your father's dying wish, all of it goes up in flames. She took a breath. I can do this alone if you need me to. I can take the fall. You can stay clean, keep Victoria happy, and save Preston Technologies. Do you trust me? James asked quietly. Yes. Then trust me when I say that the only thing I'm interested in saving is you. The company can burn. My family's fortune can disappear. As long as you're safe, as long as we're together, nothing else matters. Tears streamed down Natalie's face, but her voice was steady. I love you. I love you too. Now let's go to war. They spent the next 4 hours preparing. James sent the server credentials. Natalie uploaded every file from the USB drive, every email, every bank record, every piece of evidence that proved Victoria's crimes. Riley worked her marketing magic, crafting press releases that would go out to every major outlet at 8 a.m. sharp. Time to hit just before the press conference, giving Victoria no time to prepare a defense. At 3 a.m, exhausted but determined, Natalie sent one final email to Victoria Ashford. Subject: Checkmate. You taught me that some things are worth fighting for, that sometimes you have to break the rules to win. Thank you for the lesson. See you at the press conference tomorrow. Your former victim, Natalie Brooks. She hit send and closed her laptop. Riley had fallen asleep on the couch, her phone still in her hand. Natalie covered her with a blanket, then walked to the window. Seattle spread out before her, glittering and alive. Somewhere out there, Victoria was reading that email, realizing she'd been outplayed, scrambling to salvage her carefully constructed lies. Natalie's phone buzzed. James, I'm outside. Can I see you? She looked down at the street. James's car was parked illegally at the curb, and he was leaning against it, looking up at her window. Natalie grabbed her jacket and slipped out of the apartment, taking the stairs 2 at a time. She burst onto the street, and then she was running, and James was moving toward her, and they collided in the middle of the empty street. He caught her, his arms wrapping around her, lifting her off her feet. They kissed like drowning people finding air, desperate and necessary, and absolutely right. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, James pressed his forehead to hers. Whatever happens tomorrow, he said quietly. Whatever we lose or gain or destroy, I want you to know something. What? You were worth it, all of it. Every risk, every sacrifice, every consequence. His hands framed her face, thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. "I'd burn my entire world down for you, Natalie Brooks, and I'd do it gladly. We might actually have to. Then we'll build something new from the ashes." They stood there in the empty Seattle street, the rain starting again, gentle and cleansing. Two people who'd spent years hiding their feelings, about to risk everything for the truth. 9 hours, Natalie whispered. "In 9 hours, this is all over. Or all beginning," James countered. Depending on how you look at it. He was right, she realized. Tomorrow wasn't an ending. It was a choice, a line drawn in the sand, a declaration that some things mattered more than career success or family approval or playing by rules designed to protect the powerful. Love mattered. Truth mattered. Justice mattered. And Victoria Ashford was about to learn that the people she'd underestimated were also the most dangerous. James kissed her one more time, soft and sweet and full of promise. Then he released her, stepping back toward his car. "Get some sleep," he said. "Tomorrow's going to be hell. See you at the press conference. Natalie?" He paused, his hand on the car door. "For what it's worth, I've never been more proud of anyone in my entire life." He drove away, taillights disappearing into the Seattle night. Natalie stood there for a moment longer, feeling the rain on her face, tasting the future on her lips. Then she turned and went inside to prepare for the war ahead, because Victoria Ashford had started this game. But Natalie Brooks was going to finish it. The Preston Technologies conference room was packed. Journalists crowded against the walls, cameras trained on the front of the room where a podium stood waiting. The air hummed with anticipation. News of the emergency press conference had spread like wildfire through Seattle's business community. Natalie stood in the hallway outside, her hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She wore a simple black suit, her hair pulled back, no makeup to hide behind. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman who'd been wronged and was done running. Riley appeared at her side, pressing a bottle of water into her hand. The files went live 20 minutes ago. Every major outlet has them. Twitter is exploding. Victoria's publicist has called Preston Technologies 16 times in the last hour. Good. Natalie took a sip of water, her throat dry. "Where's James?" Inside. "With Marcus Webb and the board. They're reviewing the evidence before the press conference starts." "And Victoria?" "No one's seen her. Her assistant said she's unreachable, which meant Victoria was either planning her defense or preparing to run. Either way, the carefully constructed world she'd built was crumbling. The conference room door opened. James emerged, his expression grim but determined. He saw Natalie and something in his eyes softened. "The board's seen everything," he said quietly. "The emails, the bank records, the video of Marcus Trent making the call to Anderson. They know you were set up. What about Marcus? Security's detaining him now. He's already confessed to taking payment from Victoria, though he's claiming he didn't know what she planned to use the access for." James's jaw tightened. "He's lying, but that's a problem for the prosecutors." "And the engagement?" "Terminated. Effective immediately. The Ashford investment is pulling out, which means Preston Technologies is about to lose 40% of its value." He said it matter-of-factly, without regret. "The board is furious. My father is furious, but they understand that Victoria's crimes left us no choice." "James, I'm so sorry." "Don't be." He took her hands, pulling her close despite the people moving past them in the hallway. "You saved this company. If Victoria had succeeded in marrying me, she would have eventually destroyed everything from the inside. This way we lose money but keep our integrity. Will Preston Technologies survive? We'll find out. But right now, we have a press conference to give." He led her into the conference room, and the noise level spiked. Cameras flashed. Journalists shouted questions. Natalie kept her head high, her hand in James's, and walked to the podium, like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Marcus Webb stood to the side, his expression carefully neutral. The other board members lined the back wall, a show of unified support. Or damage control. Probably both. James stepped up to the microphone and the room quieted. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice. This morning, Preston Technologies received credible evidence that one of our executives has been the target of a systematic campaign of sabotage and defamation. His voice was clear, authoritative. The evidence, which has been turned over to both the press and law enforcement, proves that Victoria Ashford engaged in fraud, blackmail, and conspiracy to damage this company and destroy the career of one of our most valued employees. The room erupted. Questions flew from every direction. James held up a hand. We'll take questions after our statement. The woman standing beside me is Natalie Brooks. Yesterday, she was forced to resign after being falsely accused of sabotaging a major client account. Today, we're here to set the record straight and restore her reputation. He stepped back, gesturing for Natalie to take the microphone. Her heart hammered, but she stepped forward. My name is Natalie Brooks. For 4 years, I served as executive assistant to CEO James Callahan. In that time, I maintained the highest standards of professionalism and dedication. Her voice didn't shake, didn't waver. Yesterday morning, I made a mistake. I called Mr. Callahan by an inappropriate endearment. It was unplanned, unprofessional, and revealed feelings I'd been trying to hide. The journalist leaned forward, sensing a story. Victoria Ashford used that mistake as an opportunity. She'd been monitoring Preston Technologies' internal systems for months through a paid contact in our IT department. When I inadvertently revealed my feelings for James, she saw a way to eliminate me as a threat to her engagement. Natalie pulled up the evidence on the screen behind her. Emails between Victoria and Marcus Trent, bank records showing payments, the video footage of Marcus making the call to Anderson from Natalie's extension. Victoria orchestrated every aspect of yesterday's crisis. The sabotaged shipment, the deleted security footage, the anonymous tip to the board about my relationship with James. All of it was planned, executed, and covered up by Victoria Ashford in order to force my resignation and ensure her marriage to James Callahan. More questions. More camera flashes. Natalie pushed through. But here's what Victoria didn't count on. She didn't count on me fighting back. She didn't count on the evidence left behind by people she'd hurt before. And she didn't count on the fact that sometimes love is worth fighting for. She looked at James, and he looked back with an expression that made her heart soar. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for the truth. Victoria Ashford is a predator who destroys lives for sport. She's done it before. She would have done it again. And if exposing her crimes means losing my career, my reputation, and everything I've built, then so be it. Because some things are more important than playing it safe. The room exploded with questions. Natalie stepped back, letting James field the media frenzy. She'd said what needed to be said. The rest was up to the world to decide. 30 minutes later, they escaped to James's office. The press conference was over, the evidence was public, and now all they could do was wait for the fallout. James poured them both whiskey from the bottle he kept in his desk drawer, handed her a glass, and raised his own. To burning it all down, he said quietly. To building something better from the ashes, Natalie countered. They drank. The whiskey burned, but it was a good burn, clean and purifying. What happens now? Natalie asked. Now? The board meets to discuss damage control. The Ashford investment officially pulls out. Our stock price probably tanks, and I spend the next 6 months fighting to keep Preston Technologies afloat. He smiled, but it was tired. Should be fun. And us? Us. James set down his glass and pulled her close. Is the only part of this mess I'm certain about. I love you, Natalie Brooks. I'm not going to hide it. I'm not going to pretend it's anything other than what it is. And I don't care who knows. The board won't be happy about us being together. Then they can fire me. I'll start something new. We'll start something new. His hands framed her face. I spent years building a company while ignoring my own life. I'm done with that. You're the priority now. Everything else is negotiable. Natalie kissed him, pouring everything she couldn't say into the contact. Gratitude and love and relief and fear all mixed together. When they broke apart, her phone was ringing. Unknown number. She answered, putting it on speaker. Victoria's voice filled the office. sharp and venomous. "You stupid, naive little girl. Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I stopped you," Natalie said calmly, "from hurting anyone else. You've destroyed yourself. I have lawyers who will tie you up in court for years. I have connections that will ensure you never work in this city again. By the time I'm done with you, you'll wish you'd just taken the resignation and disappeared." "Will I?" Natalie smiled, even though Victoria couldn't see it. "Because from where I'm standing, I have the truth on my side. And you have lawyers and connections that won't mean much when the criminal charges come through. There won't be any charges. My father will make sure of that." "Your father," James interjected, his voice cold, "is dying, and he just learned that his daughter is a criminal. I spoke to him this morning. He's cutting you off, Victoria. No more trust fund, no more family connections, no more protection. Silence on the other end. Then, you're lying. Call him yourself, or don't. Either way, you're done." "I'll destroy you both," Victoria hissed. "I swear to God, I'll make you pay for this." "You already tried," Natalie said softly. "And you failed. Now we're done. Don't call again." She ended the call. For a moment, they stood there in James's office, the enormity of what they'd done settling over them. "She'll try to hurt us," Natalie said quietly. "She won't stop." "I know, but we'll be ready." James pulled her against his chest, and she let herself lean into his strength. "We'll fight her together, and this time, we'll win." A knock on the door interrupted them. Marcus Webb entered, his expression grave. "The board wants to see you both. Now." They followed him to the boardroom. Every member was present, faces ranging from furious to resigned. James's father, Harold Callahan, sat at the head of the table. He looked older than Natalie remembered, more fragile. "Sit," Harold commanded. They sat. "You've cost this company $40 million, Harold said, addressing James. "You've destroyed a merger that took 3 years to arrange. You've embarrassed our family and turned our name into tomorrow's scandal." "I know," James said quietly. "And I'm proud of you." The words landed like a bomb. James's head snapped up, confusion clear on his face. "You're what?" "Proud." Harold's smile was tired but genuine. "I pushed you toward Victoria because I thought you needed someone strong. Someone who could handle the pressures of this life. What I didn't realize is that you already had someone strong. Someone who'd sacrifice everything to protect you." He looked at Natalie, and his eyes were kind. "My son loves you. I can see it. Everyone can see it. And watching you stand up to Victoria Ashford, watching you fight for the truth even when it cost you everything, I realized something." Harold leaned back in his chair. "You're exactly the kind of person this family needs. Not a society princess, not a calculated merger, but someone with integrity." "Mr. Callahan," Natalie began, but he held up a hand. "Call me Harold. And before you say anything, I know Preston Technologies is in trouble. Losing the Ashford investment will hurt, but I'd rather rebuild from a foundation of honesty than continue profiting from Victoria's poison." Marcus Webb cleared his throat. "The board has voted. James, you retain your position as CEO. Natalie, we'd like to offer you the position of Chief of Staff. It's a new role, reporting directly to the board rather than James, which eliminates any conflict of interest regarding your relationship." "You want to promote me?" Natalie couldn't hide her shock. "After everything?" "You saved this company," Marcus said simply. "You exposed corruption we didn't know existed. And you did it while being willing to sacrifice your career for the truth. That's the kind of person we need in leadership." "There's one condition," Harold added. "You both need to be transparent about your relationship. No more hiding. No more pretending it's purely professional. The press already knows. The employees already know. So we acknowledge it. We manage it professionally, and we move forward. James looked at Natalie. She looked back, and in his eyes, she saw the question. Are you ready for this? For us to be public, official, real? She smiled. I accept. All of it. Relief flooded James's face. He took her hand right there in the boardroom, in front of his father and the board, and said, I love her. I'm not going to hide it anymore. And if that's a problem for anyone, I'll resign right now. It's not a problem, Harold said. It's about damn time. The board meeting continued. Plans made for damage control and financial restructuring. But Natalie barely heard it. She was too busy processing the impossible reality that somehow, impossibly, they'd won. Later, as they left the building together, walking out into the Seattle afternoon, Natalie felt James's hand tighten around hers. Your place or mine? He asked. Neither. I want to go somewhere Victoria's never been. Somewhere that's just ours. They ended up at a small park near the waterfront. Sat on a bench overlooking the sound, watching ferries cross the gray water. For the first time in days, Natalie felt like she could breathe. Do you regret it? James asked quietly. Everything that happened? No. Do you? Not for a second. He pulled her close, and she rested her head on his shoulder. I'm sorry it took a crisis for me to be honest, about my feelings, about what I wanted. We both were hiding, Natalie said. Both playing it safe. Maybe we needed the crisis to force us to choose, and now that we've chosen, now we figure out what comes next. She smiled against his shoulder. Together. Her phone buzzed. Riley, with a link to a news article. The headline read, Ashford Iris exposed, fraud, blackmail, and a pattern of destruction. Below it, another headline, Preston Technologies, CEO and Chief of Staff, a love story worth fighting for. We're trending, Natalie observed Riley. Good. Let Victoria see what happens when you underestimate people. They sat there as the sun broke, through the clouds, painting the water gold and silver. The worst was over. The truth was out. And for the first time in 4 years, Natalie Brooks didn't have to hide what she felt. But as they walked back toward James's car, hand in hand, Natalie's phone buzzed one more time. Private number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Hello, a woman's voice, unfamiliar and cold. Miss Brooks, my name is Catherine Wells. I'm an attorney representing several of Victoria Ashford's former victims. We'd like to speak with you about filing a class action lawsuit. A lawsuit? Victoria has destroyed dozens of lives over the past decade. With your evidence and your willingness to go public, we finally have a chance to hold her accountable. But we need your testimony, and we need you to understand that Victoria won't go down without a fight. Natalie looked at James. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. I'll do it, she said. Whatever it takes to stop her from hurting anyone else. Good. Because, Miss Brooks, you need to know something. Victoria Ashford has connections that go deeper than you realize. Corporate espionage, political blackmail, financial crimes that cross international borders. The evidence you exposed is just the beginning. What are you saying? I'm saying Victoria is more dangerous than you know. And now that you've exposed her, she has nothing left to lose. Catherine's voice dropped. Watch your back, Miss Brooks. Victoria's desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. The call ended. Natalie stood there, the Seattle wind picking up, bringing the smell of salt and rain. James pulled her close. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Together, she agreed. But as they drove back toward the city, Natalie couldn't shake the feeling that their fight with Victoria Ashford was far from over. They'd won the battle, exposed her crimes, destroyed her carefully constructed life, but Victoria was still out there. Still free, still dangerous, And women like Victoria Ashford didn't forgive. They didn't forget. They planned revenge. Somewhere in Seattle, in a penthouse apartment with views of the city, Victoria Ashford stood at her window. Her phone lay shattered on the floor. Her engagement ring sat on the counter, abandoned. She'd lost everything. Her fiancé, her reputation, her father's support, her carefully planned future. But she still had connections, resources, and a burning desire to make Natalie Brooks and James Callahan pay for destroying her. She picked up a burner phone, dialed a number she'd hoped never to use. "It's me," she said when someone answered. "I need your help, and I don't care what it costs." The voice on the other end laughed, dark and knowing. "What did you have in mind?" "Destruction," Victoria said simply. "Complete and total destruction. That can be arranged, for the right price. Name it. Everything you have left." Victoria didn't hesitate. "Done." She ended the call and smiled at her reflection in the darkened window. Natalie Brooks thought she'd won, thought she'd destroyed the villain and earned her happy ending. But Victoria Ashford had one more card to play. One final move that would either restore her to power or destroy them all, and she was done playing fair. 3 weeks after the press conference, Natalie woke to the sound of breaking glass. She was in James's penthouse apartment. Having unofficially moved in after Victoria's threats became too credible to ignore. James had insisted on security, on staying together, on not letting fear separate them. But in the 3 a.m. darkness, fear found them anyway. James was already moving, pulling her out of bed, his hand over her mouth to keep her quiet. They could hear footsteps in the living room. "Multiple sets, professional, precise, closet," James whispered. "Lock the door. Don't come out no matter what. I'm not leaving you, Natalie." His eyes were fierce in the darkness. "Please, if something happens to me, I need to know you're safe." She wanted to argue, wanted to stay and fight. But the terror in his voice, the way his hands shook as he pushed her toward the closet, made her obey. She locked herself in the walk-in closet and immediately pulled out her phone. Dialed 911, whispered the address and the situation. The operator told her to stay hidden, that police were on the way. Through the crack under the door, Natalie watched shadows move. Heard James's voice, calm and measured. "If you're here to rob the place, take whatever you want. I won't fight you," a man's voice, rough and amused. "We're not here to rob you, Mr. Callahan. We're here to deliver a message." From Victoria. "Smart man. She wants you to know that destroying her was a mistake, that there are consequences for humiliation. Tell Victoria the police have all the evidence. Whatever she's planning, it's over, is it?" The man moved closer. Natalie could see him now through the crack. Tall, broad-shouldered, carrying something that looked like a pipe. "Because from where I'm standing, you're alone, vulnerable, and your girlfriend is hiding in that closet like a scared rabbit." Ice flooded Natalie's veins. They knew she was here. "You want to hurt someone," James said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. "Hurt me. Leave her out of this." "Oh, we're not going to hurt anyone." Victoria was very clear about that. "She doesn't want you dead. She wants you broken." The man raised the pipe, and Natalie realized what was about to happen. She burst from the closet just as the pipe came down, throwing herself between James and the weapon. The impact caught her shoulder instead of James's head. Pain exploded through her body, white-hot and blinding. She heard James shout, heard a scuffle, heard sirens in the distance. Then hands grabbed her, dragging her backward. She fought, kicking and clawing, but there were too many of them. 2 men held James back, while a third picked Natalie up like she weighed nothing. "The message," the man holding her said to James, "is that Victoria Ashford doesn't lose. She adapts. And if you think exposing her crimes was the end of this, you're wrong. She'll appeal. She'll delay. She'll use every legal trick and family connection to avoid consequences. And while she does, she'll destroy everything you love." He tightened his grip on Natalie, making her gasp with pain, starting with her. The sirens were getting louder. The men exchanged glances, and Natalie felt the moment they made their decision. They were going to take her, use her as leverage, Victoria's final play. But then James did something she didn't expect. He stopped fighting, raised his hands in surrender. "You want to send a message?" James's voice was steady, absolute. "Tell Victoria I'll give her what she wants." "What?" "A deal. She drops all legal action against Natalie. She leaves her alone. Completely. And He took a breath. "I'll recant my testimony. I'll tell the media we exaggerated the evidence. I'll take the fall for everything and let her walk away clean." "James, no." Natalie struggled against her captor. "Don't do this!" "It's not about what you want," the man holding her said. "It's about what Victoria wants." "Then tell her she wins," James said. "My silence, my reputation, my freedom if that's what it takes. In exchange for Natalie's safety. That's the deal." The men hesitated. Then the one holding Natalie pulled out a phone, stepping away to make a call. The conversation was brief, tense. When he returned, his expression was calculating. "Victoria accepts, but there's a condition. You have 48 hours to hold a press conference retracting your accusations. You tell the world that the evidence was manipulated, that you were wrong, that Victoria Ashford is innocent of all charges. And if I do that, Natalie goes free? No more threats? No more harassment? No more danger? You have Victoria's word." "Her word means nothing," James said coldly. "I want it in writing. A legally binding agreement that she leaves Natalie alone. Forever." The man smiled, and it was ugly. "Smart. She said you'd ask for that. Fine. You'll have your document by morning. But know this, Mr. Callahan. If you don't hold up your end, if you try to back out or find some loophole, we won't be as gentle next time." He released Natalie, shoving her toward James. She stumbled, and James caught her, his arms wrapping around her protectively. The men backed toward the door. 48 hours. Don't make us come back." They disappeared as quickly as they'd arrived, leaving broken glass and shattered security in their wake. The sirens were right outside now. Police would be here in seconds. James held Natalie tightly, his face pressed against her hair. She could feel him shaking. "What have you done?" she whispered. "Saved you. That's all that matters. By destroying yourself? By letting Victoria win? She already won, Natalie. The moment she decided to hurt you, she won. Because I'll give up everything to keep you safe." The police arrived. Reports were filed. Statements taken. But Natalie barely processed any of it. All she could think about was James's sacrifice. The fact that he was willing to perjure himself, to destroy his own credibility, to become the villain in his own story just to protect her. When the police finally left, dawn was breaking over Seattle. James sat on the couch, his head in his hands. Natalie knelt in front of him, taking his hands in hers. "We'll find another way," she said firmly. "We'll fight this together. There's no other way." "Victoria made sure of that." He looked up, and his eyes were hollow. "In 48 hours, I'm going to lie to the world. I'm going to destroy my father's company. I'm going to throw away everything I've built. And it won't even matter because Victoria will just do this again. She'll find another way to hurt us. Then we run. We leave Seattle. We start over somewhere she can't find us. She'll find us. People like Victoria always do." James pulled her into his lap, holding her like she might disappear. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I dragged you into this. You didn't drag me anywhere. I chose this. I chose you." Natalie pulled back to look at him. "And I'm choosing you now. We're not running. We're not surrendering. We're going to end this. How? She has the leverage. She has the power. What do we have?" Natalie thought about Daniel Chen, about his warning that Victoria always had a backup plan, about the lawyer, Catherine Wells, who'd mentioned connections that went deeper than they realized. An idea crystallized. Dangerous. Possibly insane. But the only option left. "We have the truth," she said slowly. "And we have people who've been waiting for someone brave enough to stand up to Victoria. We're not alone in this fight, James. We never were." She grabbed her phone, pulling up Catherine Wells's number. "What are you doing?" "Fighting back." "One last time," Catherine answered on the second ring. "Miss Brooks, I heard about the break-in. Are you all right?" "No. Victoria's threatening to kill us unless James recants his testimony. We have 48 hours. Then we move now. I've been building a case against Victoria for 3 years. I have testimonies from 17 of her victims. I have evidence of crimes that go beyond what you exposed. But I needed a catalyst, someone willing to be the face of the prosecution, someone Victoria couldn't intimidate or buy off. I'll do it. Natalie said without hesitation. Whatever you need, I'll testify. I'll be the face of your case. Just help us end this. There's a risk. If we file charges now, before Victoria expects it, we catch her off guard. But it also means she'll come after you with everything she has. Her lawyers will try to destroy your credibility. Her connections will try to bury the case. And her hired help might try something more permanent. I don't care. I'm not letting James sacrifice himself for me. Not now, not ever. Catherine was quiet for a moment. Then, all right, I'll file the charges this morning. Class action lawsuit against Victoria Ashford for fraud, blackmail, assault, and conspiracy. But Miss Brooks, once we do this, there's no going back. You'll be painting a target on yourself. The target's already there. At least this way, I'm fighting back. They worked through the morning. Catherine and her team filed charges with multiple jurisdictions. 17 victims came forward, their testimonies painting a picture of systematic abuse spanning a decade. Media outlets ran new stories, this time focusing not just on Victoria's crimes against Preston Technologies, but on her pattern of destruction. By noon, arrest warrants had been issued. Police were searching for Victoria, but she'd disappeared, gone to ground somewhere with resources and connections. James spent the day on the phone with his father and the board, explaining why he wouldn't be retracting his testimony, why he was doubling down instead. The conversations were tense, angry, but ultimately supportive. Harold Callahan in particular surprised them both. You fight, he told James. You fight with everything you have. And if Victoria comes after the company, we'll rebuild. But we don't negotiate with terrorists. Not ever. The 48-hour deadline passed. No press conference. No retraction. Instead, a defiant statement from James and Natalie, delivered jointly to every media outlet. We will not be intimidated. We will not be silenced. Victoria Ashford is a criminal who has hurt countless people, and we will see justice served. No threats, no deals. No surrender. The response was immediate. Victoria's lawyers filed countersuits. Her remaining allies tried to spin the narrative. But the weight of 17 victims, the pattern of abuse, the mounting evidence, it was too much to dismiss. 3 days later, Victoria Ashford was arrested trying to board a private plane to a country with no extradition treaty. The footage of her being led away in handcuffs went viral. The woman who'd spent her life controlling her image, destroying others to maintain power, reduced to another criminal being processed by the system. But even with Victoria in custody, Natalie couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't over, that somewhere, somehow, Victoria had one more card to play. She was right. 2 weeks after Victoria's arrest, as Natalie and James were beginning to believe they might actually survive this, a package arrived at Preston Technologies. No return address, just Natalie's name on the label. Security scanned it. No bombs, no biological weapons. Just a single USB drive and a handwritten note. Natalie recognized Victoria's elegant handwriting immediately. You think you've won. You think destroying me means you're safe. But I recorded everything. Every conversation with James. Every private moment. Every vulnerability. It's all here. And in 1 week, unless you drop all charges and issue a public apology, I'm releasing everything to the media. Your relationship with James. The intimate details you thought were private. All of it will be public entertainment. And when I'm done, you'll wish you'd just taken the deal. Natalie stared at the note, her hands shaking. James read over her shoulder, his face going pale. She's bluffing, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Is she? Natalie plugged in the USB drive. Files populated the screen. Videos, audio recordings, timestamps going back months. Victoria had been recording them. Their conversations in his office. Their late-night calls. Even their first kiss had been captured somehow. The angle suggesting a hidden camera Victoria must have planted before everything fell apart. It was an invasion so complete, so violating, that Natalie felt physically sick. She can't release this, James said desperately. It's illegal. Recorded without consent. No media outlet would touch it. The internet doesn't care about legality. She uploads this to the right platforms, and within hours, our entire private life becomes public entertainment. Natalie closed the laptop. She wins even from prison. What do we do? Natalie thought about the past weeks. The fights, the sacrifices, the constant war with a woman who refused to accept defeat. And she realized something. They could keep fighting, could drag this out for years. Both of them bleeding from 1,000 cuts, their privacy destroyed, their relationship dissected by strangers on the internet, or they could choose something else. We call her bluff, Natalie said quietly. We release it ourselves. What? Victoria's power is control. She controls the narrative. She controls the timing. She uses people's shame and fear to manipulate them. Natalie stood, a strange calm settling over her. But what if we're not ashamed? What if we own our story before she can weaponize it? Natalie, those videos show two people in love. Nothing illegal, nothing shameful, just private moments that were never meant to be public. She took his hands. Yes, it's a violation. Yes, it'll be uncomfortable. But the alternative is letting Victoria control us forever. You're serious. Completely. We go to Catherine Wells. We tell her about the recordings. We turn them over as evidence of Victoria's continued harassment and illegal surveillance. And we make a public statement that yes, we were in a relationship while I worked for you. Yes, it complicated things. And yes, we chose each other anyway. James stared at her like she'd grown a second head. You want to publicize our relationship? I want to take away Victoria's ammunition. She can't shame us if we're not ashamed. She can't destroy us if we're willing to be vulnerable. Natalie smiled, and it was fierce. We write our own story, James, not her. It took 2 days to coordinate. Catherine Wells used the recordings as evidence of additional charges against Victoria. Stalking, illegal surveillance, harassment from prison. Meanwhile, Natalie and James gave one final interview. This time, they controlled the narrative. They talked about falling in love while trying to maintain professionalism. About the mistakes they made hiding it. About Victoria's manipulation and their decision to fight back. They acknowledged that their relationship while Natalie was James's assistant was complicated, potentially problematic, but ultimately genuine. We're not perfect, James said to the camera. We made choices that others might question. But we're here today because we chose honesty over comfort. We chose each other over safety, and we're not ashamed of that. Victoria Ashford tried to destroy us, Natalie added. She used our love as a weapon. But here's what she didn't understand. Love isn't a weakness. It's the reason we're strong enough to keep fighting. The interview went viral. The recordings Victoria had threatened to release were now evidence in a criminal case. And instead of being destroyed by exposure, Natalie and James found themselves supported by thousands of people who'd been inspired by their refusal to quit. Victoria's final card had failed. Her power, built on fear and secrecy, crumbled when her victims refused to be afraid anymore. 3 months later, Victoria Ashford was sentenced to 6 years in prison for fraud, blackmail, stalking, and conspiracy. Her appeals were denied. Her connections abandoned her. And the empire she'd built on manipulation collapsed completely. Natalie and James stood outside the courthouse, hand in hand, as reporters shouted questions. They didn't answer. Didn't need to. Their presence together was answer enough. That evening, they returned to James's penthouse apartment. The windows had been replaced. Security upgraded, but more importantly, it felt like home now instead of a battlefield. James poured them both wine. They stood at the window, looking out at Seattle's glittering skyline. I never thanked you, James said quietly, for fighting, for refusing to give up, for being brave enough to love me despite everything it cost. You did the same for me, Natalie replied. We saved each other. So what now? We've defeated the villain, survived the war. What do people do when they actually get their happy ending? Natalie smiled, turning to face him. They live. They build something new. They figure out how to be normal after everything that happened. Think we can do that? Be normal? Absolutely not. But I think we can be happy anyway. James pulled a small box from his pocket. Natalie's breath caught. I know this is fast. I know we're still dealing with fallout and trauma and about 1 million complications. He opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant ring. But I almost lost you. Multiple times. And life's too short to wait for the perfect moment. He took her hand. Natalie Brooks, will you marry me? Will you build a life with me? Will you keep fighting beside me, challenging me, making me better just by being who you are? Tears streamed down Natalie's face. Yes. Yes to all of it. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and they kissed like they had that first time in his office. Desperate and necessary and absolutely right. I love you, she whispered against his lips. I love you too. And this time, I'm never letting go." 6 months later, they were married in a small ceremony overlooking Puget Sound. Riley was maid of honor. Harold Callahan walked Natalie down the aisle, whispering that she was the daughter he'd always wanted. The Preston Technologies board attended, as did Daniel Chen, who Natalie had stayed in contact with throughout Victoria's trial. There were no Society Pages coverage. No elaborate production. Just two people who'd fought through hell to be together, finally getting the peace they'd earned. Preston Technologies rebuilt. The Ashford investment loss had hurt, but they'd found new partners who valued integrity over connections. James and Natalie worked side by side, her as chief of staff, him as CEO, building something stronger than before. They never forgot what Victoria had done. Never let their guard down completely, but they also didn't let her win by living in fear. 1 year after their wedding, Natalie was working late in her office when her assistant brought in a letter. Prison postmark, Victoria's name and the return address. Natalie almost threw it away unread, but curiosity won. The letter was short, written in Victoria's elegant handwriting. "You won. I'll admit that. You were stronger than I expected, more resilient, and James was willing to sacrifice more than I calculated. Congratulations on your marriage, on your perfect happy ending. But know this, Natalie Brooks Callahan, I may have lost this battle, but I have 4 more years to plan the war. And when I get out, I'll be someone you never see coming. Sleep well, knowing I'm thinking about you. Always." Natalie read the letter twice. Then she took out a lighter and set it on fire, watching the threats burn to ash. James appeared in her doorway. "Everything okay?" Victoria sent a letter. More threats, more promises of revenge. And I burned it. Because I'm done being afraid of her. Natalie stood, moving into his arms. She can plan. She can threaten. She can hate us from her cell. But we're living, we're happy. And that's the best revenge there is. James held her close. "Smart woman I married. You know it." They stood there in her office, the Seattle night spreading out beyond the windows. Somewhere, Victoria Ashford was plotting their destruction. Somewhere, new challenges waited. New fights, new complications. But Natalie and James had learned something important through everything they'd survived. Love wasn't about perfect moments or easy choices. It was about choosing each other, every day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. "Ready to go home?" James asked. "With you?" "Always." They walked out of Preston Technologies together, hand in hand, leaving the office and its battles behind for the night. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight was theirs. And in the end, despite everything Victoria had done to tear them apart, despite the betrayals and sacrifices and impossible choices, Natalie and James had something Victoria would never understand. They had each other, and that was enough, more than enough. It was everything. The end.